Gary ain't said a word tonight.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going. I'm Joseph and I'm 21 years old. Today I'm going to be talking to you about where I was raised, the struggles I've had to deal with, and how I overcame them. I was born in Oxford, Mississippi, and I lived in Batesville for most of my life. I lived in Batesville for about 17 years altogether. Even though I've had many experiences here, I'd have to say I learned and grew the most in Thibodaux, Louisiana, my favorite place to be. My junior year in high school, my family and I moved there because of my dad's new job. My dad, growing up in Louisiana, he felt right at home, and it didn't take long for me to fall in love with the place. And while I was there, I met some of the best friends I could have ever asked for. Now that you know where I was raised, I'm going to talk to you about some of the struggles I had to deal with. While living in Thibodaux, even though I loved it, those were some of the hardest years of my life. My senior year in high school, I had a son at the age of 18. And the first few months after he was born were relatively easy. But as me and his mom spent more time together and spent more time trying to agree on things, we just realized it wasn't going to work. And this was when they started dragging my name through the mud on social media, calling me a deadbeat father. And I didn't take too kindly to that. So shortly after, I hired a lawyer, and that began 2 years of going back and forth to court. And after 2 years of going nowhere, I had to make one of the hardest choices I've ever had to make. And that was signing my parental rights over because I didn't want him growing up in that kind of environment. And during those 2 years, I lost my first best friend, which was my dad. He had been having a few medical problems for a few years, and mainly being his kidneys not functioning properly, and that ultimately causing his heart to fail while he was at work. Even though the EMTs were able to revive him, he passed away a few days later. Now that you know about the hardest times I've gone through, I'm going to tell you about how I was able to overcome them. I was able to overcome them firstly because of a support system, being my sister Jenna and my best friend Travis. Even though me and Jenna would live in 2 states, well, in 2 different states, she'd call me, almost every day, making sure I was okay, just checking on me. And even days when I wouldn't want to get out of bed, Travis would be there, and he would just come lay on top of me, and he'd stay there until I'd get out of bed, which worked 100% of the time. And when I didn't have those 2 around, I turned to video games as an outlet just to escape from the real world. While I was playing video games, I could just focus on what was on the screen, and I wouldn't have to worry about what was going on in my life at the time. During this speech, I'll talk to you about where I was raised, some of the hardest things I've had to go through, and how I was able to overcome. And just remember, everyone has hardships and hard times, but I didn't let mine slow me down.